Why, hello there. Today is day 642 of watching an Elden Ring trailer, and I am joined today by the PC editor of Game Informer, Dan Tack. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dan.
Hey, it's great to be here. It's been a lot of days since that first Elden Ring trailer.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, 642 days since we first saw it at E3 2019, so it's coming up on 2 years, and we've kind of gotten a new trailer. I mean, that's what we'll be watching today is the leaked trailer. But I feel like it's only been like a week since it came out, and I feel like I'm already like I'm not over it, but it's not really the real thing, obviously. It gives
Sure.
it gives you a taste, but man, I really want the real trailer. Like
Yeah. Especially since we don't know the rather dubious nature of this. It was never meant to be seen by the
yeah,
public or anything like that. So
yeah,
it's certainly a little messy, and
yeah,
some of this stuff might not even be representative of what's in the game. That's
yeah,
that's the worst part, and
yeah,
that's from my perspective, it's not that I don't like people finding out about stuff early. It's
yeah.
that it can misrepresent things. And as somebody who gets to see stuff really early and sometimes get to see things that's in games that never really comes into the final product or anything like that. It's these things can be nasty. But I realize on the other end of things, I realize that people are really, really hungry for any kind of Elden Ring information that they can get
Yeah.
their hands on. So I get it.
It's tough as someone who's just super interested in From Software as a developer because they're so secretive. And the glimpses into From Software I've seen mostly through your coverage. So it's like
Yeah,
it's so hard to see behind the curtain. And actually, not to just tangent too hard, but just having been to the From Software offices before, like how wild of an experience is that as like someone who's like clearly a Souls fan from all the interviews I've watched and stuff. Like you can tell when someone really knows the details of a game versus sort of the general coverage. And just like with your Demon Souls coverage and other coverage, it's clear that you have a bit passion for these games. And what's it like actually getting into From Software just with how reclusive they are otherwise? They're so hard to get anything from.
yeah. So I've been lucky enough to visit From Software Studios twice. Once for Dark Souls 3 and once for Sekiro, and it was a great experience both times. They're great to work with. That perception that they do keep it quiet until they're ready to talk about things.
Yeah.
They're not unique in that respect, I don't think. But yeah, we got tons of access for Secure, which is great. We got to talk to all kinds of people at the studio about what they were working on, and I think that shows in our coverage. And being able to sit down with Miyazaki and just talk to him for hours is a luxury that very few are afforded, and we're
Yeah.
very thankful that we got to do that. And
Yeah.
as a Souls fan, it's great to have that opportunity, right? And I do hope that one of my goals whenever I'm lucky enough to go out there is to ask questions that I think the fan base wants to know
Mhm.
answers to.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff just doesn't have, or they won't answer, like
Yeah.
specific lore questions, stuff like that. But um, generally, it's great. It's really great, and they have a really big operation out there. I don't think a lot of
Mhm.
people realize that. Like they have like 8 floors of offices
Yeah.
to wander around.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, so when you were there for Sekiro, Elden Ring was under development, but I assume with all that space, there's no way that you ran into any chance of being like, so what's that floor about? I assume they were able to keep anything they didn't want shown off pretty secret, or did you have any inclination at that time what they might be working on?
I didn't know anything about Elden Ring at that time, but I
Okay.
will say that wandering around there on the Dark Souls trip, we did get to see a couple of interesting things that
Yeah.
there's some trust involved when you're
Yeah.
doing a big project like that with the company.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I imagine it's interesting because, you know, I I was I've loved the Game Informer coverage and the cover stories for the Souls games has like especially if I did a video series for Sekiro, and like that was like a lot of the talking points leading up to release were coming out of what you guys did in that December of 2018, I think it was at that point. And just with things are how they are, and is with everything being digital and pandemic, like how has that affected like your coverage, especially of something like with Souls and like interviews? Does I assume that's thrown some challenges in, but like you're still able to sort of get those cover stories, but how does that work differently with like this digital format? Do you have any hope of something similar, not really prying for Elden Ring, but just how that affects your ability, especially with someone like, like a Japanese developer, if that makes it more difficult or. just how
Well,
that's going for you.
I definitely hope that one day cover stories will return to their
Yeah.
old ways. We found really great ways
Hmm.
to get the information and get all the stuff that we used to, but there's something to be said for actually, having full studio access,
Yeah.
or that gives you some perspective and opportunities that you just can't get with a structured sort of Zoom call or whatever, or meeting or whatever, like structured demos and stuff like that. It's just not the same experience.
Yeah.
We're not at that time yet, but
Yeah.
I really hope we get there in the future.
Yeah.
Um, and I'd love to go back to From Software.
Yeah.
Every trip out there has been incredible.
It's super interesting to see, like, once they actually get to the marketing, if they'll do a quick turnaround. I'm not really sure what to expect out of From Software and Bandai Namco for this, just because I don't think they'll do like a Bethesda thing where they're like, or a Nintendo thing where they're like, oh, this is out in like 2 months. I assume they'll want to sort of build up hype for it, but it's been something I was curious of your perspective on it, just with your experience in these things and just what you think they might try and do for the marketing.
I think in the past it's been pretty easy to set your watch by From releases
Yeah.
and the marketing cycles and how those work. I think COVID has been a wrench in game development across the board,
Yeah.
with extensive delays and to the point of, and I don't know if this is the case of From Software, but glacially slowing down progress on current projects due to the many different pipelines and things that go on behind the scenes in game dev that it's not as simple as, hey, we're just going to work from home. I wish it was, but the reality is it's way more complicated than that, and I'm sure that From was hit hard on this as well.
Yeah.
Then again, so to me that makes any kind of speculation about what this marketing cycle is for this particular project. I have no idea, and I know normally we can make an informed speculation based on what we've seen in the past, but I just don't think that's gonna fly here with today's world. With
that makes a lot of sense, and that's why I think anytime I see someone pitching like, oh, I think they'll do this or that, it's like, well, it's marketing in general to me is like black magic under normal circumstances. So especially with this, I'm like, I have no clue what to expect, because publishers in general are having to do things they've never really done with doing their own digital events and just like stuff like, coming up and being like, there's not an E3, or like not in the classic sense, just a lot of the stuff that you look forward to. So it's really hard to pin down, because From Software and Bandai Namco do tend to show at big shows, but big shows don't exactly exist anymore. So it'll be really interesting.
Yes. So not only, again, that's another element. Not only do we have the COVID factor, but we have a complete shift in game presentation, at least for the immediate future, to digital events from physical, and all of that entails, shooting a high production video that's gonna, market your game well, compared to, having the kids playing in the background and everything from a scrappy video you had to shoot, from a bunch of different teams, then put it together, chop it up, and get it in there without any, upload it to a bunch of different private servers that are under a billion times encryption, and hope to God that somebody takes file 1127 final and not 1172 final 2, right? Because that one has the wrong title card in it. These are all elements that are meticulously handled under normal conditions, and we just have so many abnormal conditions here that I don't think trying to predict anything in the normal sense is really useful. Which has led to this this great absence of information on Elden Ring, and hence hey, believe me, I know the Souls community. I know how hungry they are to know anything about this game. Hence, I do not begrudge them for enjoying the leak, but at the same time, I just don't think it's what From would want people to see to showcase the game.
No, that is certainly the tension in general about looking at it, and being part of, sort of perpetuating it, is like, it's like you release it, and then I've spent the last week making content to then say, well, don't trust it too much. It's because it's like, as someone who follows stuff like, and follows cut content, like, and just follows game development in general, it's easy for me to recognize, but I do not begrudge any of the million people watching this trailer, because everyone wants to see a bit of Elden Ring, and they're just like, It's Dark Souls 4. I'm kind of disappointed. And that's an unfortunate thing that they probably would have had to fight normally a little bit. And this is probably not the version that they would want to put forth. And it's just going to provide a bigger uphill battle. But like marketing and leak stuff aside, in general, just as a Souls fan, you know, how excited are you for From Software to return to an action RPG after Sekiro, to return to sort of their bread and butter?
You know, I like Sekiro a lot. I think it's a
Mhm.
great game. I do. I do think I prefer From's Dark Fantasy Suite
Yeah.
over it. I enjoy the customization options you get and you know, the multiple ways you can approach things. Whereas, you know, I really like Sekiro, but
Hmm.
uh, I think From is unparalleled at the Dark Fantasy ARPG. I think that's what they do best, and I don't want them to stop doing it. And, you
Yeah.
know, if you're good at something, do it.
Yeah.
And it's great to see that they
Yeah.
ostensibly are going to be continuing to do that with some iteration.
Yeah.
What iteration, we don't know. We have like 15 seconds of blurry footage captured off a phone that
Yeah.
looks like it was, you know, thrown into a toilet and run over by a train before we
Yeah.
got the footage. You know, it's like ridiculous. And this is what we're clinging to as the basis. So, you know, and you know, who knows if any of that stuff, like the horseback ride, who knows if any of that stuff's actually, so many changes happen
Hmm.
from development to final in a lot of things, and nobody is the wiser for it. And oftentimes that's great. Like, there's so many different things you can talk about. Like, oh yeah, we tried that and it didn't work. And like, now we're just gonna have to live with this
Hmm.
in the community as a thing until they're ready to show what they're gonna show.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how it's gonna be.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the interesting thing just with the leaks in general is like From Software, from what you can tell from cut content, is like people think that they like meticulously craft these games when just like you almost get the idea that people feel like no detail is unintentional. And from my mind, it seems more like they throw a million ideas at the wall and then they try to see what they can pull out of there. And then they're meticulous about removing stuff. And that's why in the cut content, you find so many cut mechanics. Like they don't seem afraid to get rid of stuff if it's not working. So to catch something at this point in development where that footage is a year, maybe 2 years old for all we know, it's capturing something where, like you said, like so many changes are possible. And it's for me personally, if that blurry footage then comes out crystal clear and it just looks something more on par with like Sekiro or like a really nice looking Dark Souls 3, I personally would be pretty happy. Like I love the Souls games, and I was by Dark Souls 3 I thought the narrative was getting maybe a little complicated and just the world building was starting to, like I think Dark Souls 3 was intentionally referencing itself and it was
Oh,
doing.
I have plenty of issues with Dark Souls 3,
Yeah.
but I think it does play the best out of the
Yeah.
three games. It's
Yeah.
like the cleanest. It's like
Hmm.
crisp and clean, and a great game. But yeah, it was a little bit, you know,
Yeah.
it definitely felt more like greatest hits of Dark Souls rather than its own entity to me
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. And again,
Yeah.
hey, when it's funny though, I go back and play Souls games now. That's the one I want to go to just because it is
Yeah.
the crisp and clean. Even though, you know, 2 is my favorite. I know. Come at me. Come at me. All right.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too because I'm happy for Elden Ring to just present a new world and new lore because that's kind of like my always been my motivation for the games is finding out, their opaque worlds and their half-told stories. And I'm a fan of George R. R. Martin, and I think he's a brilliant storyteller and especially a brilliant world builder. So for me, getting George R. R. Martin to build the world and then From to do their thing with their environmental storytelling and giving you item descriptions that give 75% of the details and you're left to sort of add some stuff together. Like that's perfect for me. And the fact that they don't have to consider the world of Dark Souls means I'm like, okay, go for it. Like I'm happy to just have that. And then when you start to add in things like horseback riding, like horseback combat, and then like an open world, like I've spent a lot of time in this series of videos just sort of pitching to people like I do think the combat at its core is going to probably feel a lot like Dark Souls 3, like with some new systems added. But like I think that's because it's not just let's add horses, let's add horseback combat, let's add an open world, because the more you sort of dig into that, the more you're like, well, that's not really what the Souls games have ever been structured like at all, and that adds so many
Yeah.
complexities that like I don't know if people are like fully considering that when they're like, oh, looks like Dark Souls 4 but open world, and I'm like, it's not like it was like Skyrim or anything that was designed around that. Like this is taking a developer who designs very intentional, basically corridors, really fancy corridors sometimes, but essentially pathways. I've always thought of them as more like Metroidvanias than like an open world game, even if there's multiple paths. But like making an open world game with this combat engine sounds like a dream come true, and also really freaking hard to do. And so I imagine that's where most of their effort is going, and just trying to reconcile the structure of that world.
Sure. I mean, from a fully speculative standpoint, yeah, I
Yeah.
can imagine like taking the From Software, what they've done, what they've built upon in their dark fantasy roots, and transferring that to an open world format. I imagine is quite challenging, very
Yeah.
ambitious, and obviously, I'm very excited to see what they're going to come up
Yeah.
with the final version.
Yeah, did you have any like hopes or dreams for Elden Ring, or just like something you want them to try in like a Souls game that may not show up in there at all, but something you'd just be excited to see show up in Elden Ring?
I think I know. I think I know. Listening to people on the internet, the great old internet, they want a billion different changes. I think if you just iterate one thing well from
Mm,
title to title, then you're in a great place. Especially if that thing is open world.
yeah.
That is already a massive shift from what we've seen.
Mm,
Even if it plays a lot like Souls games, but it has the open world concept and it realizes that would, to me, is a big success.
yeah.
And a huge challenge, very ambitious for that series.
Yeah.
Again, it's not in that series, but unfortunately, as you said, now that this leak is out there, it's going to be compared to that until we see more, at the very
Mm,
least.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
so
yeah. I think that.
horseback riding, I'm a little I'm a little skeptical about that being added into the Souls universe, or into the dark fantasy From Software universe. That's
Yeah.
going to be challenging as well. So
Yeah.
that's already two huge things we've got
Yeah.
on the table that we have very good indicators of. People were talking about that long before the trailer came out as well. So
Hmm.
long before the bits and pieces came out.
Yeah. Yeah. Like before this, we had two interviews from Miyazaki, and basically the only things that were said were there'd be horses and it's going to be open world.
Right?
So
Hey, that's a lot.
yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, those are big sentences. Those sentences I've spent hours talking about. So there's clearly a lot that you could do with them. And it will be interesting if it's like more like a Witcher 3 like segmented open world, or if it's truly like a sandbox. There's just so many bits and pieces that we'll only find out as we get more information, and
Yeah,
otherwise it's
we
complete
don't know.
speculation. Yeah, we don't
We don't
know.
know, but if I was gonna guess, you probably could just go anywhere to these areas that all have their big boss, right?
Yeah.
Because From makes big bosses in areas.
Yeah.
That's what they do, and they do a really good job at it. So I'd imagine it just kind of like sets you loose, and you go out and like, I want to go that away, and at the end of that away, there's some big boss that may be too hard, so you go this away, and it's,
Yeah.
hey, I don't know exactly how it's gonna happen. I don't. Nobody does.
Yeah.
We'll see,
Yeah.
right? We'll see how the. And again, it's important to talk about like whatever. Every week I hear about like, hey, there's going to be new info on next week or next month. It's like, whatever, man. Like,
Yeah.
maybe there will, maybe there won't. Talk to
Yeah.
me then.
It's interesting to compare when like a fan base is really pushing for something new and really want a developer to mix it up versus being okay with being the same. And I've sort of been surprised to see the fan base pretty split. Like I'm always curious when I hear someone say like, "Oh, this just looks like Dark Souls." I'm kind of disappointed. I'm like, what did you want from software to create? If not Dark Souls, what did you want them to create in a like a dark fantasy action role playing game? Like there's only so many things that will be totally different before, as you said, it's not really the same thing at all. Like iterating on one or two things at a time is kind of what From Software does really well. And
Right? Like they're not, again, they're not changing like how weapon swings.
yeah,
They're at open world is a huge element
yeah,
to inject into their already established framework. And again, we don't even know if that's how it's gonna.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like in a 15-second snippet that we have no idea what it was being used for.
Yep.
It boggles the mind, really.
Yeah. It is funny too, because like the leak's disappointing, but also not surprising for From Software. They had the Bloodborne Project Beast leak.
Right.
Dark Souls 3 had had all those like really early concept art images leak out. So it's just funny to me that like that's not even just Bandai Namco at that point. That's across like just whatever, for whatever reason, From Software can't get away without their titles leaking out a bit just before. I think Sekiro was, they seem to control that pretty. There was a few small things, I think, but nothing on the scale of like a Project Beast trailer or these leaks, which appear to maybe be in like Project Beast trailer. I went and rewatched that. Like they made some.
It's a great trailer.
It's a great trailer, and they certainly made some big improvements from the point you saw there to the final product. And the leaked trailer here looks much rougher. Like it's not even like cohesively cut. Like, and I don't really understand it, as you know, we've been saying, who knows why? Like literally this like almost 2-minute video is like a random compilation. So it's hard to take too much at all from it, because it obviously wasn't even cut to like look like presentation worthy almost, because you cut and you have different watermarks between the footage. It almost feels like B-roll that someone just kind of collected for a million reasons. So
yeah, you can make all kinds of inferences based on the fact that it has from the makers of Bloodborne and the Souls series. It's like, okay, well, what are they using this for? At the end of the day, I'm glad that the community has something to talk about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, what can you do? It's there now. We live with it.
Yeah.
I do hope we get to see or hear something soon. But again, with any kind of game dev right now, I'm not holding my breath because it's just like, and that's potentially one reason why we don't have a date, is like, why give a date when you're going to have to delay it again? And you don't know.
Yeah. And on that hand, I feel like really pretty happy with how they've handled things, because I think we've seen from a bunch of games is that push, probably because it makes a lot of sense to give people feedback and to give the community something. And, I know that the Elden Ring community and From Software fans have always been, I think we've never had to wait for From Software long enough to really feel a silence, but they've never been super strong at communicating. And that's because they've never really had to worry. They've been sort of like clockwork. So in this case, I do feel like in the long run, it may kind of be a bummer now for people really excited, but like if they had like tried to drip out information and it still went on for 2 years, I don't think anyone would be happier with that. And you can look at that with something like a leak where everyone gets really excited. There's something to talk about for a week, but then you notice people are just getting anxious again. And that, the Elden Ring subreddit is back to what it was doing, which is essentially just waiting and going further into madness over time. But, so
at some point they will have their day. They will have their day.
Yeah. And, I would rather them just remain silent until they know for sure as best they can what's happening, and then just move forward and do their sort of typical 6 to 9 month cycle. Like if that's what they need to do, I'd prefer that than them feel any pressure. And people have debated back and forth, like, did the leaks change a release? And like, I'm just like, there's way too many people.
I guess in a very theoretical space that is possible, but from my perspective, there is no way that had any bearing on any kind of decision at all.
Yeah, that's how I felt about it, just because like I don't work in games, but I work in a project-based field, in a field where there's like marketing and everything, and I know how much work the marketing teams do to get the projects that I work on out the door, and how much coordination with third parties it takes. So they're not just going to halt all these plans because of one thing. Like they're not going to be like, well, everyone thought it looked like Dark Souls 4. We got to redo the game now. Like there's like things are in motion, and it kind of is what it is. And it's just the idea that they would stop like you said, maybe there's a small chance, but I just assume there's
Anything can
yeah,
happen,
yeah,
without But I want to leave that door open. But it's a very, very small and
yeah,
very unlikely door, given my experiences.
yeah,
Okay, they're not just gonna. No,
yeah,
does not seem likely.
yeah. It just there's so many people working on that. Is like these teams make up tons of people, and their whole job's not gonna be sidelined by one thing. Possible, but unlikely. So I think at this point, let's watch this leaks trail. Let's
Oh, we're gonna watch this. All right,
yeah,
great.
we're gonna watch this.
I got my popcorn ready. Let's do this. Look at that, a castle. First time From Software game.
And a dragon.
A dragon, also a first time in a From Software game.
Now these enemies I think look pretty cool. Like I'm hoping they make the cut. Just because
Big giants, first time in a From Software game.
Big head, that is a little new. I don't well, there's been some big heads.
That's a little new.
Yeah.
The sea of fog all the way to the Riftlands. Well, this is the very edge.
Look at that. I've never seen that spell.
Imagine what drives you to seek the Elden Ring. I suppose you can't be talked into turning back. Very well, then.
Get hype. Backstabs are back, baby.
Yeah. You got your homing soul mass.
Yeah.
Seafaring flash sword. Which to me,
Moonlight Greatsword is coming back.
yeah. Yeah, the moon, the color of the moon coming up is unmistakable. Also,
oh, now we're somewhere else.
Yeah, it's such a jarring. It's just like, who knows what this was made for, and you can tell because who's going to cut the music right there?
Door opening.
I know they got to keep the door
concept.
jumping.
Now the jumping that could be interesting.
Yeah, I'm thinking
that room right
sense.
there is pretty intriguing right there. That I think that might be like the kingdom room or something where you get to light those portraits up by going to take out different things across the world. I don't know. That's extreme speculation, okay, based on
That's all we have right now. So,
yeah.
But I hope this boss isn't like a super secret that was never meant to see it until you played the game because, you already see the moonlight great sword colors. Like,
It's Rom the vacuous spider comes out of the background. There we go.
Yeah.
Boom.
So there we go. There is day 642 of watching Elden Ring trailers, and there we go. There's the leaked trailer. I sort of put in air quotes because it's not. It's more just like almost 2 minutes of footage and part of a trailer, which based upon the little sliders, we're still missing parts. But I'm personally here's how I feel. Please, no more leaks. If there's anything else out there, just hold on to it, whoever you are. I don't want to see. I don't think any of us really want anymore. We've got a taste. I hope the leaks can be done from here, and we can just wait however long it is until we get the official information to come out. But we will see. We will see as it goes.
Yeah, we will see.
But yeah. So that's day 642, and Dan, thank you so much for coming on and talking about Elden Ring for a little while.
Hey, sure. Any time to talk From Software stuff.
Right, yeah.
Always fun.
Exactly. And so where can people find on the internet anything you'd like to plug?
Sure. Well, obviously check us out at www.gameinformer.com for all things, We've done some great From Software cover stories over the years. Mm-hmm. And then you can check me out personally at twitch.tv/dansnax, DANSNAX.
Awesome. Yeah. And thank you so much again for coming on. And for everyone watching right now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 643.